What's going on, guys? I hope you guys are all having a good day. It looks like the Battlefield community is actually having complete withdrawals since the beta ended, because now if you go through any of the online discussion this entire weekend, there has been the complete breakdown of whether or not the game should include the filters over everything. The cinematic filters that are covering the screen. You know, we have on Cairo, there's kind of like a yellow wash, and then you go to Liberation Peak and there's kind of a blue wash. I mean, ever since the beta has ended, there's been something to talk about with this game, whether it's, a plethora of options between the movement of the game, which has been debated, up and down, the recoil for the game, the visibility, and of course, the map sizes has been a large source of debate since the game had its initial beta launch. And I've been covering these a lot, so if you're interested in all the Battlefield news, go ahead and hit that sub button, because I'm going to be here talking about everything Battlefield, Call of Duty, anything FPS related, really. And I haven't really talked about anything else other than Battlefield and COD, but that's been the main thing going on these last couple of weeks, and so that's what we're here for. But let's get back into it. There has been a post floating around talking about where, beta, or not beta testers, but alpha testers, took screenshots of the game and are now comparing it to the beta of the game, showing that when the alpha was available, there wasn't even a filter applied to that version of the game. And, I'm going to show the screenshots here in just a moment. The game looks a lot less washed out compared to what the beta had. But before we get into that, let's just talk about the fact that the older Battlefields have also been longly debated with this filter. I mean, how many of us remember the extreme blue filter from Battlefield 3? It felt like every time you're looking at the game, I mean, hopefully, I don't even know if blue light glasses were very popular back then, but I guarantee a lot of us have eye problems because we were staring at old TVs that were just completely blasting blue light at us while we were shooting people on Operation Metro and all the other fun times that we had on Battlefield 3. But let's move on from that. We're going to be talking about these screenshots that I have from the alpha comparing to the beta. Let's take a look at these. If you got to play the beta at any time, this screenshot would be familiar for Siege of Cairo, because that's just kind of what the game looked like. But now I'm going to shift this to the alpha screenshot right now. So look at the alpha for this game, right? The colors are more saturated, everything is more colorful, and it looks a lot more natural than what we have in the actual game, which is more of like a reddish yellow tint, and it just kind of washes out the entire game compared to this screenshot from the alpha. And I've got plenty more. Let's take a look at another one where, right in the middle of the street for Siege of Cairo, you're looking at kind of a pinkish, kind of a reddish tint. And now if we switch over to the alpha screenshot, we suddenly have a much more neutral looking map. Everything looks a little bit more natural. And from what I've read online, it seems like a lot of people would rather the visuals of the game look like the alpha visuals, right? You're seeing a direct comparison of what we are currently getting with the reddish pinkish tint, and then you're looking at some of the screenshots from the actual game that we're going to get for the full release for Battlefield 6. I'm going to keep flashing these visuals up on the screen. They're going to be a direct comparison of the more neutral colors of the alpha versus the pinkish red of the colors that we're getting in the full release with Siege of Cairo. So just keep looking at some of these while I talk about this, because this is what we're, this is what we're all talking about. This is what we want. But, where am I going with this? What is it that people want with this discussion, right? We're all talking about a possible filter and whether or not we can turn that off or on, right? DICE should, listen to the community. They've been really, active about trying to fix the things that everybody wants for the game. And now we're going to possibly get a, filter switch, and they haven't confirmed or, discussed this at all. But how funny would it be? The entire Battlefield community has a huge outcry on whether or not they can switch this filter off. And yet you flip the switch and go over to another game, Call of Duty, and they've been outcrying for years to have a filter for skins in that game, and there's been complete radio silence from the Call of Duty devs on whether or not they're ever going to add something like that to the game. And yet Battlefield has they have a great opportunity to come in and, tell us, hey, we're listening, this is what you want, this is what we're going to give you, so here is a filter switch. Turn it off and on in our menus and go ahead and have fun with that. Change up your visuals, do what you like. That's how you win over a fan base. That's how you keep people interested in your game, and that's how you're going to end up, beating, say, Call of Duty this year, right? Just give the people what they want. I'm not saying that everything that a community outcries about or discusses about has to be changed, right? At the end of the day, the developer's going to make the game that they feel is important to them. And, if you make a change or, mold your game to the exact whims of your community every time, then, you may end up hurting your game in the long run. But I think something as simple and as small as a filter change or switch over to, different visuals is not something that's going to cause that much strife, and some people might want a green tint. Some people might want a blue tint for Siege of Cairo, make it look like Battlefield 3 again. But right in the middle of this discussion, you had a community manager, Kevin Johnson, come in and talk about how the filter for the game, like, it's not like a filter like other classic games. It's more of an atmospheric vibe for each particular location. So because we're in a colder environment for Liberation Peak, it's kind of a bluer color. Because we're in a desert for Siege of Cairo, it's more of a, pinkish red tint. But I'm kind of on the side where some of the alpha visuals, especially for Siege of Cairo, do look a little bit better in my opinion. I don't think the pinkish reddish tint on Siege of Cairo looks bad by any means. I still think the game looks absolutely incredible. And even though, you're looking at two different versions of, a filter on a map of all things, but at least we're able to actually debate this thing, right? It's not exactly people complaining about it. It's whether or not, some people like this version of the filters on the map and other people like the actual, main direction that's already in the game, especially in the beta. But these are, part of the devs' artistic, choices. This is their choice to put in this, I don't even know if I can call it a filter at this point. It's more of an LUT, like if you, I'm even trying to find a way to explain this, right? LUTs are just kind of like a passover, that an artist puts over the screenshot so they can, achieve a certain artistic vibe, right? Including the tweet that the dev or the community manager went over, right? It's not exactly a filter. The last game that I can remember that had a huge discussion over, quote unquote filter, or in this case an LUT, was actually Monster Hunter Wilds. That game had just a really weird, like, grayscale or just kind of like a muted color across the thing. I specifically added mods to that game so I could get rid of the LUT, and once I disabled that, the game looks super vibrant and really nice. And I think that's what some people like. Some people like super vibrant, looking games, and some people really like the look that the devs put into the game, right? But I think you can just add an option, right? Put a little tab into the settings to disable the LUT, and whether or not you like that or not, you can turn it off and on at your own will. I don't even think it would give anyone a, like, super advantage through the visibility. Like, at the end of the day, spotting is still going to put a big old bright triangle over your head, and you're going to get shot through all the smoke, and no matter what color it looks like. It doesn't matter if it's, super dark purple or super, light red and pink Siege of Cairo, or if it's the light blue from Battlefield 3. I mean, put that blue filter on top of the game, and it doesn't matter if you've got that spot over your head or not. You're going to get spotted, and you're going to get mowed down by everybody that can see that. I think this kind of discussion is really good for the community, actually. A lot of people are annoyed that the entire, discussion posts and everything else going on is filled with, filter this, filter that, or LUT, or whatever you want to call it at this point, right? But these are good things to talk about. I mean, the devs are looking for exact, feedback on the game, and I don't know if they expected everyone to go after the, the LUTs or the filters on the game. But this is still a good thing for the game, right? People want discussion, right? And hey, if we end up getting a filter change or some way to toggle the LUT in the settings, I mean, that's just a win-win for the Battlefield devs, and it'll really show, shove it up Call of Duty's ass, because they have been really just pushing all this crap on everybody, and nobody likes the stuff that they're putting out anymore, right? This is a good chance to go ahead and just, throw your comment down below, right? Show me, what you think about this kind of discussion, right? Is this even something that we should be talking about that much? Do you want a toggle for this kind of filter, or do you not? Would you prefer it to be more saturated and more colorful, or would you rather the, color grading of the artist for the game and the intended look for each of the maps to be just embedded into the game with no option to change it. Because I am curious on whether or not, everyone's, I don't know what everyone's side is. My side is, I don't really have a stance. I'm kind of right in the middle. Put a filter if you want, put a filter if you don't, right? Toggle it on and off if you want to add it or not. Well, that's all I got to talk about today. Hope you guys enjoy the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. See you later.